I've been on Booktube for 5 years now, so what better way to celebrate than talking about every 5-star I have given since 2019. Hey everyone, how you doing today? My name is Kirsty, aka Beth Bookish, and as I said, I started Booktube 5 years ago, and I really want to talk about the 5-star books that I have accumulated over those years. And the funny thing is, when I was compiling this list of books for each year, I was like, some of these I forgot I gave 5 stars. Some of them I was like, absolutely, I do not think they are 5 stars now. I am considering maybe in the future doing a video where I tier rank what I think now of my 5-star books. Like, do I still think they hold up, or do I think they're like no longer 5 stars? But I don't know. But for this video, we're just going to have a quick look at each year, look at what books I rated. I will say there will be mentions of books and authors that I no longer support and no longer will promote, but I feel I still need to mention the books because at the end of the day, at the time I was reading them. I might not now and I will never again, but I did at the time, so I will mention those books, but I won't talk about those books, okay? I will just say the book, the author, and we'll move on and carry on with our lives. But anyway, I do love it when a book surprises you and you give it 5 stars, especially when it's a book you don't expect to love and it kind of comes out of nowhere and you're like, whoa. But I have accumulated quite a few, and I have a fair amount of stacks of books here with 5 stars. So I'm excited to go through them all. I'm not going to go into super depth, otherwise this is going to be a 3-hour long video. But we're going to go all the way back to the very start of my channel in 2019, and one of the ones we're going to talk about very, very quickly, the very first 5-star I ever gave was to Harry Potter and the Philosopher's Stone, but I then very quickly stopped reading them shortly after that. Moving on. Then we had Relentless by Karen Lynch, and this is an indie self-pub series that I just had a great time with. I've chosen to reread this as part of a celebration for my channel and being on here for 5 years. I've chosen books from each year that I'm going to reread and see if I still love them, and this is one of them for 2019. And we had my first ever book box 5-star. This was Sorcery of Thorns. I had the Fairy Loot edition. I still really want to get the Fairy Loot edition again, but I just remember having a really great time. You will not convince me that Silas is not based off Sebastian from Black Butler, because just the sass, the snark, everything about him just screamed demon butler. He was even a demon butler. It was amazing. I loved him so much. But I just really enjoyed every element of this book, and again, this is one that I have chosen to reread because I think I'm going to have an amazing time the second time, just as much as I did the first time. One that I'm rereading, not for that vlog, but just in general because I want to get to the sequel series, is Dark Shades of Magic. But in particular, Ren bought me this box set last year of the paperbacks because I only had the hardback special editions, and I adore them for it, but oh my god, are they a bugger to get out. But book 1, A Dark Shade of Magic, kickstarted this trilogy for me, and oh my god, it reignited my love. It was what sparked me to actually join Booktube, and as you well know, it inspired my candle business, and the very first candles I ever made were inspired by these characters, so this one will always have a very big place in my heart. Then we had Alice by Christina Henry. I have talked about this book a lot on this channel. You all know it. You know how much I love it. And again, it's one that I've chosen to reread for the project vlog, for the celebration vlog. And I'm just... Hatcher can hatch out my heart anytime. And then our final one for the year was Stalking Jack the Ripper by Kerri Maniscalco. I just remember being blown away by this. I thought it was really clever. I loved the way that they weaved in real life history in with the story. And it had some surprising twists I wasn't expecting, and I just absolutely loved it. And the chemistry between Audrey Rose and Thomas? I want to say Thomas, but I feel like I'm wrong. But the dude, it was off the charts. I loved it. I only did give 6 5-stars that year, which was 6 out of 42 books, which worked out as 15% of my books had 5 stars. So I was happy with that. And, you know, those 5 stars kickstarted the love of some of my all-time favourite series. I feel like 2020 was a pretty iconic year for me for reading. Obviously, we had not much else to do but read and play video games. But I found some of my all-time favourites. 11 out of 68 books were given 5 stars, which was 14%, 13? 16, which was 16% of my reading. So again, really successful year. The first of those is another one that I said I'm not going to linger on, but that was Fangirl by Rainbow Rowell. Then we had A Gathering of Shadows and A Conjuring of Light. I read them back to back. I finished Conjuring of Light. I sat there and I cried for about half an hour. I just could not get over the emotions that I went through in that final book. Next up, another very, very quick mention. We have Carry On a Wayward Son by Rainbow Rowell. Both got 5 stars. I love them, but then the final book absolutely let down the series and made the whole series feel a bit trashy to me and felt like trash and was unnecessary, but I did still love those first 2 books. Moving on, we have the first of many Nalini Singhs and Archangel's War, which was, can't remember what book number this is, which is book 10 in the Guild Hunter series. This one it made me cry. And it had me very tense. And yeah, this is still one of my favourite books in this series. Especially there is a moment with Izzy, who is a baby angel or a little young angel, Izzy, and a missile launcher. Still one of my all-time favourite moments in this series. Next up we had The Once and Future Witches by Alex E. Harrow. The writing in this was beautiful. The interweaving of all the stories and the sisters was gorgeous, but this is one that I am rereading because a lot of the finer details have escaped me, and this is a 500+ page book, and so I kind of just feel like I need a refresher on what happened in this book in order to remember why I loved it so much. The next one we had was Scarlet by Marissa Meyer, book 2 in the Lunar Chronicle series. I inhaled this book. I think I read it in about 4 hours flat. And I was instantly obsessed with Scarlet and Wolf. And I just loved the way that Marissa Meyer did this retelling. It was just so good. And it had a couple of really heavily emotional moments that had me tearing up. So it was fantastic. And we have one of my all-time ever favourite books that is another one I've chosen to reread for my project. And that is Addie LaRue, The Invisible Life of Addie LaRue by V. Schwab. I love the message that is in this book, where it's no matter how long or how little you are on the world, you will leave a mark and you will leave an impact that says that you were there. I genuinely thought it was gorgeous and I am very excited to reread it. Then going back to the Guild Hunter universe, we have book 11 I think, or 12, 11 or 12, and that is Archangel's Son. This one we follow Shireen and Titus, and oh my god, watching Shireen heal from a lot of the trauma that she's gone through in her past and just watching her become the person she was before that all happened. It was so gorgeous. I loved the moments that we got with her bonding with her son. I loved the relationship with her and Titus, and how Titus was... Everyone else in the angel world has basically treated her like fragile glass and has just treated her like, you have to be soft and gentle, and he's just like, yeah, fuck that. Toughen up. And I just... I love it. He's just naturally so big and bold and boisterous. He can't tone it down, and I just love their dynamic. It's gorgeous. And then the final 5-star I had of that year was Kingdom of the Wicked by Kerry Maniscalco. Now looking back, I very highly doubt I would give it above a 3, but at the time I just remember being really sucked into it. I loved the atmosphere of the book and the visual imagery it gave me. But I do remember I kind of got bored in parts, and now looking back, I don't think I would give it a 5 stars. But I definitely loved the food, and I loved the setting, and I did like the atmosphere within and some of the elements within that. And I really liked Wrath. Was it Wrath? I'm sure it was Wrath. Yes. He was cool. Moving into 2021, my first and last 5-star of the year that I'm not going to talk too much about again because author who I'm no longer supporting and won't read again, but we have House of Earth and Blood by Sarah J. Maas. Read this book twice, loved this book twice, and was then severely disappointed and hated the sequel and DNF'd the third one, and I'm never going to go back to it, so bye bye. Then we had the first read of Cemetery Boys by Aidan Thomas. This book was absolutely everything, is absolutely everything. It's got my favourite characters of all time. I love the storyline in here. I love the fact that it deals with death and death magic and ghosts. All the amalgamation of all of the different cultures in here and everything. And I love the fact that it's been confirmed that there is going to be a sequel, and I'm just... Then we had Geekerella by Ashley Poston. This one I really loved. I don't know now if I would give it 5 stars, but at the time I absolutely loved it. I devoured it in one sitting. I loved that it was centred around convention and cosplay and what that community is like and what it actually means to be part of that community. And I just absolutely loved the different ways that the Cinderella story was weaved into the modern setting. It was just so, so good. Next up we have Coerced by Ice, book 3 in the Psy Changeling, and one of my all-time favourites in that series and of ever books. Judd is like a golden standard. Brenna has gone through absolute hell. As a result, people have kind of tiptoed around her and treated her like a little broken bird since. She's now reached that point where she wants to get back to who she was, but everyone around her is still trying to compress her down and keep her protected and sheltered and treating her like she's broken. And so when she starts fighting back and getting aggressive, they're all like, whoa, where's this coming from? And then Judd is just her champion, and just... Then we have my reread of Alice, and I still gave it 5 stars, and I still maintained it was one of my all-time favourite retellings because it was just so good. Then we have One Last Stop by Casey McQuiston, which was my first sapphic romance. I also did not see the big sort of twist and reveal towards the end. I did not see that coming, and I was like, oh, mind blown. It was amazing. People were kind of like, you know, how did you not see that? But I have ADHD. I focus so much on the small things that the big picture just flies right past me with neon flashing lights, and I won't even look up from that tiny little detail. Then we had These Hollow Vows by Lexi Ryan, which I don't think, again, I would give 5 stars now, but it was the first time that I really enjoyed a fae book, and it was the first time that I enjoyed a love triangle type situation or a love V type situation. I definitely need to reread this one to decide whether or not it's still a 5 star, but at the time it was. I devoured it, I loved it, and I thought everything about it was really good. Gleam by Raymond Kennedy is next, and this is the 3rd book in the Plated Prisoner series. I have a recurring theme of loving books with women who have been beaten, broken and smashed into pieces, reclaiming their power and saying a huge fuck you to the people that did it and getting their revenge. Returning to the world of Guild Hunter, and we have Archangel's Light, which is a book that I can't talk about the pairing in this because that in and of itself is a spoiler for the series. But I will say that for those of us that had been following the series from the first book, we had been the majority of us had kind of been shipping them for a long time, but we didn't think we were going to get them as a couple, and we did, and it was glorious. And this book is absolutely everything, and it was raw, it was emotional, it had me sobbing into my pillow at 2 o'clock in the morning, trying desperately hard not to wake my house up. It was so, so, so good, so satisfying, and had some of my favourite moments in this series. Another one that had me sobbing was A Man and His Cat by Umi Sakurai, and a cat that's been unwanted for over a year and no one wants to buy him because he's ugly. And an older gentleman whose wife has just died, and he is lonely and looking for companionship and promised his wife that they would get a cat someday, and he's now following through on that promise. It's every bit as wholesome as you think it is. And then the final one for that year is one that I put down. All of Us Villains by Amanda Foodie and Christine Lynn Herman. This features a town that is cursed, and there is magic that comes from death. It's sort of like you gather the energy of the dead and that creates like this magic, and it's all collected and pulled together, and then whoever is the current ruling family, they are in charge of the power. And every generation there is a tournament where a teenage representative from each of the families has to go into a to the death tournament, and the last one standing, their family then are in control of all of the magic and all of the power. So it's a story where it's following that, and part of the curse is that if a family does not send a representative, the entire family dies. So you kind of lose-lose situation. No matter what you do, you could die. And so very high stakes, very high emotions. Didn't quite play out the way that I'd expect, so I don't think if I reread it I would give it 5 stars, but I remember at the time I was absolutely hooked and I read it pretty much in one sitting. Moving into 2022, we have our biggest stack of books. Of 90 books, 21 of them were 5 stars, which comes to 23%. So it's the highest percentage in any year so far where I've given 5 stars. Uh-oh. Where's the stack? Is that the stack? I think that's the stack. The first of these was this monster, which is Winter by Marissa Meyer, the final book in the Lunar Chronicle series. A better finale I don't think I've ever read so far. It was incredible. It had everything I wanted. Everything got wrapped up. I wasn't left feeling like we had been shortchanged or anything like that, and it was just so good. But I can't really talk about it without any spoilers, but I will say it's one of my favourite, if not my favourite finale of all time. Then we have Only a Monster by Vanessa Len. I read this in a day. I gave it 5 stars because it just kept me on edge, and I didn't predict a lot of the stuff that happened in it, and the ending was just so like, whoa, I didn't expect that, and it threw me for a loop. I really liked the characters. I liked how there was a bit of a budding potential relationship between 2 characters, from enemies to lovers. A's a sucker. So yeah, I just really enjoyed this one. This is one I am going to be rereading to decide if I still love it and want to continue it. Then we had the start of the Psy Changeling Trinity series, which is kind of arc 2 of the Psy Changing series, and we have Silver Silence and Valentin. I love the man. The bears are by far my favourite changelings in this series. Anytime we have a book that centres around the bears, I just know that they are going to have the best time, and it's so very good. Next up, we have another one that I know would not be a 5-star now, but at the time it was, and I think it's because of how quickly I read it and the fact that I was so in it at that moment, and that was The Love Hypothesis by Ali Hazelwood. I loved it at the time. Now when I look back on it, I'm like, ugh. The Hate You Give by Angie Thomas was a buddy read that I did with Chelsea from Chelsea Zhao. We both cried. We both said it was one of the most gripping and emotional books we've ever read, and is one I think everyone should read because, especially in today's society, it is such a poignant and meaningful book. And like I said, it left me crying from the first chapter, and it just didn't stop from there. It was incredible, and yeah, I will always stand by this one being a 5-star. But I will also never read it because of the emotional damage it put me through. Similarly with Loveless, but for different emotional damage reasons, this one made me have a lot of revelations about my sexuality and about myself. And I just don't need that kind of therapy right now because I don't want to confront my feelings and I don't want to confront my emotions. So I would rather just not read this and not have those existential crises about who I am. Then we had Book of the Year for 2022, which was Glow by Raven Kennedy, which is where Auron really stepped into her power and her like revenge cycle, and holy cow did it pay off in the best kind of way. But also there was a lot of emotional moments in that book. There was a lot of high stakes in that book, and it set things up for the 5th book to be an absolute clustercluck. So I cannot wait. Next up we had Shadow Fever, which is book 5 in the Fever series by Cara Marie Moning. I did a big reread of all of these, and this is the final in the original quadrilogy. There's now a couple of spin-off series, but the original were supposed to just be 5. And again, spoilers, I can't talk about it, but it just had some of my absolute favourite moments. It had some of the best character development, and the relationship between Barons and Mac just blew me away. Then we have Enough by Kevin Dorman, who is here on Booktube, and this is a book written in verse about a character who, after leaving a mental health clinic, is then abandoned by their family and is basically, what's the word, denounced? No, disinherited? Disowned by her family. And it's about her recovering not only with the mental health and everything else, but also with the family abandonment. And it deals with topics such as suicide, family abandonment, and it's all very much inspired by Kevin's own experiences having that familial detachment and abandonment. And it's just a very heavy, very hard-hitting story. And like I said, it's all written in verse. It was my first time reading a book in verse, and I think I spent half of this book crying, and there are a few that I really want to get made up into like prints that I can put on the wall because they were just so poignant and so beautifully written. Poison Study by Maria V. Schneider I just thought was a fantastic start to the series. It held up really well despite being a bit of an older YA now, and all I can really say is just Valak was my favourite character by far, and it went a lot darker than I was expecting it to, which again is another thing I really miss about YA nowadays, is I feel like YA goes mature in the way of sexual stuff rather than mature in the way of kind of darker, grittier themes. And I miss the older days of YA where, you know, there was a lot more to do, like assassins and things like that, and it went a bit darker rather than nowadays where it tends to go spicier. I don't know, I just feel like this one it gave me a very nostalgic feels, and I can't wait to continue the series. Sunbearer Trials by Aidan Thomas. We all know how much I love Aidan Thomas. I love the culture in this, I love the world building, I love the characters. There is BIPOC rep, Latine rep, there is trans rep, there is bisexual rep, there is deaf rep. There's just so much rep in this book, but it's not done in any kind of, it's all just so beautifully written in, and it's so seamlessly written, and it's just such a good book. And I will be rereading this one soon because the sequel is out this year. Then we have the Anime Chef cookbook. It's a cookbook about anime food, and she follows it up on her Instagram by giving demos of each of the recipes. If there is a way to get me, a reluctant eater and cooker, chef, to cook, it's this. Then we have The People on Platform 5 by Claire Pooley. This one, she is so good at writing ensemble cast pieces, and this one just went in ways I didn't expect, and it had different characters of all different age groups who end up, you got like a teenager up to an 80-year-old woman, and just different backgrounds, different things, and they all commute on this same train, and they all end up coming together and building their own little community and family. And it was just I loved it, and it was another one that had me sort of quite emotional at times, but I loved it, and I stand by that 5-star. 16 Souls by Rosa Talbot. I think we all know how much I absolutely love this book. It's one of the best debuts I've ever read. It has, again, so much rep in it, with like disability rep, LGBT rep, mental health rep. You can tell this is an author who loves what she does and knows how to research and get those first-hand experiences in order to properly represent people. So good. I'm not going to talk about these all in like separately. I'm going to talk about them all in one. But we have a whole bunch of Psy Changeling books. Kiss of Snow, Heart of Obsidian, Shield of Winter, Allegiance of Honour, Hawk and Sienna, Caleb and Sahara, Ivy and Vasek, and then this one was the finale of the first arc and kind of just wrapped everyone's stories up for that little bit, and we kind of got to touch bases with everyone. All of these were fantastic in different ways, but I will say Ivy and Vasek and their dog, Rabbit, they are, for me, one of the best couples in any book I've ever read. Second to last, we have Legendborn by Tracy Dion. This was a reread. First time I read it, I gave it 4 stars. The second time I read it, I gave it 5 because I wasn't so overwhelmed with the world building, and just Selwyn Kane has my entire being. And I just love everything there is about this series. Now finally, for 2022, The Agency for Scandal by Laura Wood, which Enola Holmes meets Bridgerton. There's a romance in it that's amazing. I loved all of the different elements in here. I loved the concept of women supporting women, and I just loved all of it. For 2023, we start with Wayward by Amelia Hart. This one was a very big surprise. I did not expect to like this at all because it's like generational women and has like a historical element in there and was magical realism, and I was like, oh, I don't know, but I got it as an arc. I took a chance, and oh, did that chance pay off. I really loved it. It has some beautiful quotes in here. It was suspenseful, atmospheric, and just completely blew me away, and I did not expect it to be such an amazing book. Hi! Then we had Delilah Green Doesn't Care, and this book made me laugh out loud. It had me tearing up. I connected with both of the characters, and I understood both of the characters for different reasons. And I just had an amazing time with this, and again, it has some of my favourite moments that I have read in like a rom-com type book, and has made me realise that I really do actually enjoy sapphic fiction and I should read more of it. Then came Beach Read by Emily Henry. I didn't expect to really, I thought this was going to be kind of mid, but I think the main reason why I really connected with the story and ended up giving it 5 stars is because the character shared the same birthday as me, and a lot of the events that happened with her in her life reflected things that I've gone through, and I was just like, this is getting scary now. Then came my second favourite book of the year, Boyfriend Material by Alexis Hall. Oliver and Luke were a brilliant match. They're so opposite but in different ways. They both have different insecurities, but I felt the relationship was really maturely handled. They didn't talk to each other like they were 10. They actually had conversations like adults, and they didn't let things simmer for too long. And I am going to be rereading this as part of my 5-year celebration because, you know, I really want to reread it and annotate it now I have a physical copy thanks to Ren. Our Dining Table was my top manga of last year and was just so cute. It's found family, it's a male romance, and the main character goes from being a complete loner who is afraid to eat with other people because of the stigma and the bullying he had from his step family to having this found family and sharing meals with them every day. And it was just so cute and wholesome and set in the backdrop of winter as well, so it had that cozy like stews and getting under the kotatsu table and all of that, and it was just so good. I have loved the entirety of the Heartstopper series, but my favourite is Heartstopper Volume 4. This is where certain things, specifically with Charlie, come to light, and there's I'm not going to say because in case you haven't read it, spoilers, but it just had some very heavy, emotional and poignant things to do with mental health and body dysphoria and things and eating and things like that, and it really focused not only on Charlie and his battle with things and his side of the story, but it also did show Nick and what he goes through during that time as well. And I just loved how we got both of their perspectives. I just thought it was beautiful and it had me tearing up. Going back to Nalini Singh, and this is our final Nalini Singh, but as I said earlier, when there is a book in this series that we go to the bears, I'm gonna love it, and this was no exception. My Hero Academia Volume 17. I'm not going to say anything about this other than it is the penultimate of the Shie Hisaikai raid, and I listened to it and I read it while listening to the anime soundtrack, which was a mistake. What I will say though, Mirio, when watching the anime, Mirio was kind of like a meh kind of character for me. Reading him in here, I was Team Mirio all the way, and yes, I cried at that iconic scene yet again because I can't not see that scene and not cry because god damn it, Eri, you have my heart. Then we had a series, Cat Gamer 1. I absolutely love this as a gamer, as a cat owner. I kind of very much resonated with this book and the main character in this, and I had a fantastic time with it. Woman who is a gamer and pretty much her life revolves around nothing but gaming, ends up adopting a stray cat. Chaos ensues, and I definitely stand by the 5 stars. It was so cute, so wholesome, and one of my favourites from last year. Then we had the sequel to Legendborn, Bloodmarked, and things ramped up massively in this book. I was basically holding my breath the whole way through, but honestly, like with Bree and Cell, I'm just like, Nick who? That's so mean, but yeah, Then I had my reread of Cemetery Boys, and it was still 5 stars. It didn't make me cry this time, but it hit me in different places in different ways. And Maritza, who I didn't like the first time I read it, I loved this time round, so that was a payoff all in its own. Then we had my book of the year, which was The Reanimator's Heart by Kari Jorgensen, and I absolutely love this because it features a main character who is autistic and who is also a necromancer, and I loved it. I had such a good time with it. I got a little bit confused towards the end with what was going on, but honestly, I was there for it. I mean, The Raven Boys, I was confused the whole way through, and it's still a favourite series, so, you know. And then the final one for 2023 was Under Your Spell by Laura Wood. This releases in June of 2024, so please go check it out and support the release. I had such a fun time. She's also undergoing therapy, and honestly, I was like, shit, I now need therapy. But, you know, we're not going to do that because denial is a place in Egypt and not me. Anyway, this one was just so fantastic. I loved all the atmosphere, I loved the characters, and again, it proved to me that Laura Wood knows how to write fantastic stories, and I have like a rule of 3. I don't declare an author an all-time favourite author until I've read at least 3 different things by them, but she is only one off, and both books so far have been 5 stars, so. And finally we're moving into the books that I've currently for this year given 5 stars. Obviously it's April as I record this, the end of April granted. So we are still only 4 months into the year and there are opportunities for more, but as I'm talking about all of the books that I've given 5 stars to up until this point, I can't not mention them. Starting off strong, we had strong female... starting off strong. That was not intentional. We have strong female character by Fern Brady. This is a memoir of Fern's own experiences of being a late diagnosed autistic woman, and honestly, it was basically me written into a book but with extra anecdotal stuff mixed in. It helped me understand a lot more about myself. It definitely reinforced the fact that I am autistic, because I only started to question if I was about 2 years ago, and then finally decided, yes, I am autistic about a year ago. And, you know, this has helped me to realise this. Following up was another surprise one, Before the Coffee Gets Cold by Toshikazu Kawaguchi. I was not expecting to give this 5 stars. At first, the first story when I read it, I was like, this is kind of mid. By the end of the book, I was sobbing big, ugly, fat tears and going, holy crap, this is amazing. I now need to read more. Start of the year, I picked up I Think Our Son Is Gay Volume 1 by Okura. And Ren is completely right that this book is absolutely everything and is the most wholesome thing ever, because the mum is very much aware that her son is gay, but he is not yet ready to come out. And so she's just trying to support him in the best way that she can. And then his little brother is also supporting him. But the mum is just so beautiful, and she makes this such a good book. Then we had The Masterful Cat is Depressed Again Today. Volumes 1, 4 and 5 all got 5 stars because this book is just everything. This series is absolutely wholesome and everything. He's just trying to look after his absolutely hopeless owner, and now just in his own way he's looking after her, but then she looks after him, and just it's so beautiful. I love it, and I spend half the book laughing and half the book going oh, and then a couple of moments of crying. And then our most recent ones, both are from this month. We have Spy Family Volume 9. This volume is very Yor-centric, solidified her as my favourite character in this series, and oh my god, it was perfection. It had a mixture of funny, action, everything, the stakes were high, and it just was so good. But I'm not going to talk about it because A, you'll see it in my April wrap-up, and B, we're into the series. It's spoilery territory. And then the most recent one was King's Rising, which is the final book in the Captive Prince series by C.S. Pacat. Having just said that I don't think I could rate any of these books 5 stars because of the content, some of the content that's in here, I ended up giving this one 5 stars because it was so incredible. It blew me away. I forgot how to breathe by the end of it and nearly passed out. And then obviously cried at the end because of all the emotions I felt during that book. Okay, so that is every single 5 star that I have read since I started Booktube in 2019. It's been so fun having a look at these books and realising which ones I still stand by, which ones I definitely don't stand by, and then the few that I've realised I don't actually know if I would still give them 5 stars. As I said, some of these will be coming up in a couple of upcoming vlogs where I'm celebrating 5 years on Booktube, and I'll be rereading some of these to see if they are still favourites, but I've kind of picked them because they should still be favourites. And yeah, I'm really excited to get started on that project. Let me know in the comments if you have read any of these, and what are some of your 5 stars that you've read during your time on Booktube or since you started picking up your books. Let me know in the comments. I hope you're all good. I hope you're staying safe. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and also check out my Patreon. I will see you on the next one. Bye.